Hey TechKnowStuds, in this demo we're going to set up a Raspberry Pi that we're going to connect to our network so we can use it for testing purposes. The first thing that we're going to do in this process is look up some instructions on how to set up a Raspberry Pi. And I'm doing this for two different reasons. Number one is that over time things are going to change and the install process is going to be a little different. So you're going to need to learn how to do that. Number two is that within this industry, there's a lot of things that need to be researched. And so you'll have to get good at doing searches and finding information online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a browser here and I'm going to type in set up Raspberry Pi. And this first one here is the projects.raspberrypi.org. I'm going to click on that. It has a great walkthrough with this. So here we can see there's an introduction to it. On the left-hand side, there's some navigation to it. So we can go through these instructions and learn how to do the install and setup of the Raspberry Pi. So what we need to do next is, because some of this will be pretty much plug and play and you'll be able to set it up, but one of the things is if your Raspberry Pi doesn't come with an OS installed, you'll need to do it. So let's take a look at how to set up the SD card and prepare it for the Raspberry Pi. Now, if you just purchased a Raspberry Pi, there's a good chance that that Raspberry Pi already comes with an operating system on it, and you may not need to go through these steps. But if there is an SD card and it is not formatted for the Raspberry Pi, then you're going to need to go through this process that we're going to go over right now. And the thing is that the SD card has certain files on it, but it's also formatted in a certain way. So you can't just take files from your machine, the OS files, and drag it onto the SD card. The SD card has to be formatted. But thankfully, there's a real easy process to do that. There's a program that will actually format that SD card. So I scroll through this page right here, and I click on the Visit Raspberry Pi Downloads page. So this is where I can download the operating system. And here's the Raspberry Pi OS, and here's a download for Windows. I'm on a Windows machine, so I'll click Download for Windows. Once it's downloaded, I'm going to click it to open it up and do the install of this. So I'll click on Yes. Go through this install process. Now what it's installing is it's installing the program that's going to format the SD card. So now that we've downloaded and installed this program, I'm going to run it. So I'll click Finish. It will come up, it'll run. Then I'll choose the OS that I want to operate. I just want the basic OS. I don't want to do any of the customization, but there are some really cool things you can do with these Raspberry Pis. I'm just going to go with the standard, and then I choose the storage. Make sure you choose the right storage. We want the SD card. So I have in the past accidentally wiped out some of a drive that I was using, and not in this process, but a similar process, and it's not fun. So make sure you've got the right one selected. So I'm going to select this and then click on Write. And it warns you all existing data is going to be erased. You want to continue? Yes, I do. And now it's going through the process of preparing that drive. While we'll do this, I might as well pull up a timer, so see how long it takes. All right, as you can see, it took about 17-18 minutes. I didn't start the timer right away. So now what we can do is we can hit continue, and we have now formatted our drive. So now you can take the SD card out of your computer and put it into the Pi and plug it into a monitor and make sure everything is working fine. So I actually ran into a little issue, and the issue is that when the Pi would come up, it would flicker a couple things onto the screen, but then it would go blank and wouldn't give me anything. And so I had to do a little research to fix that issue. And when in researching, that seems to be a common issue, so I'll step through that process. But you may encounter a few different errors out there, and you'll have to just do some Google searches to figure out what that error was. And for the most part, it's pretty easy and slick to set up, but if there are errors, just pull up a Google, and in my case, I typed in Raspberry Pi turns on, but there's no display. I hit enter. I read a few of these articles. A lot of these articles were saying the same thing, which is that you have to go into the configuration file, take the SD card, put it back into your computer, go into the SD card, and force this HDMI hot plug here. So you just delete the brackets or the pound sign, the number or hashtag. You delete that from the beginning of this, and then it uncomments that, so that makes that line active. And so there was a couple things that I had to go do and just make that uncomment those a couple lines in there, and then it worked for me. So now I have a Pi that I can set up on my network, and I can practice pinging it and doing certain testing it out. And so now I got this cool tool that I can use to play around with.